This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into a car edition out of the studio here in Cold Lake on a rainy Thursday morning as we get set up for the weekend, getting underway here in a few hours' time. Obviously, for the Oilers, over the span of the past 24 hours, it has been one interesting go. A lot of talk about, obviously, the players meeting with the media. That means Leon Draisaitl's future has been up in the air. But yesterday, a lot of talk about what's happening with Ken Holland. It didn't sound like he was going to return, and it is officially known now, thanks to Darren Drager of TSN, letting everybody know that the Oilers informed Ken Holland yesterday that he would not return to the club in any official capacity. So Ken Holland out as Edmonton Oilers GM following his contract expiring. And then secondarily as well, there will not be a new position or a rehoming within the organization for our past 5-year general manager. So Ken Holland officially done with the Oilers. That leads to the speculation. I know Scotty Upshall, I believe, had a tweet out the other day asking, well, maybe Ken Holland's headed to Chicago. As well, you had another rumor upstanding there from a little while ago talking about Ken Holland possibly going to Columbus. We covered that one a while back. So for the Oilers today, obviously a bold move to release Ken Holland ahead of the draft, right? That's the other side too there is they decide to move on from him instead of have him as the acting GM just to get through the draft. There had been speculation, I believe, that Ken Holland would survive until at least free agency. He does not end up doing that, so here we have it instead. The Oilers will, well, unless they're naming somebody general manager today, likely run the Jeff Jackson show throughout the draft and early free agency. So there's still guys that we have a negotiation period with, I think, today. So you may have some re-signings today, possibly. And then as well, you have guys that will pop up during the draft. But it'll all be, as I believe it has been since November, the Jeff Jackson show for the Edmonton Oilers. And why that is, well, simply put, Jeff Jackson was brought in with a mandate from Daryl Cates to get Connor a cup. He falls one goal short in the Stanley Cup Finals Game 7. And obviously now you're going to see the organization under Jeff Jackson with the direction of Daryl Cates make the changes it feels it needs to get through that hump and get that cup for Connor in 2025. Now that's all fine and dandy. We can talk about that all day. We can have a blast talking about what the future holds, but I'd be amiss if I didn't at least have a little moment or two to talk about Ken Holland and the job he did with the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, when you look back, it really is a story of Dolynny TV, Ken Holland's tenure as Edmonton Oilers GM. I go in to the first full year covering the Edmonton Oilers in 1819. Obviously, we fire Peter Chiarelli right early. We fire Todd McLellan early. We fire Keith Gretzky at the end of the year. We kind of rehomed him to the Bakersfield Condors. But then stepping aboard after that season was Ken Holland. He makes a couple of big moves, right? It was Lucic for Neil. You got a whole bunch of other stuff that happened there. You signed a couple of European free agents in Gaetan Haas and Joachim Nørgaard, trying to find somebody to kind of step up on this Oilers team in an unknown role. Ultimately, it's Ken Holland doing what Ken Holland does best, signing guys, starting to draft and develop a little bit and simmer some guys down in the minors, and ultimately it leads 5 years later to a Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 appearance for the Edmonton Oilers, in which Oilers fans have a lot to hang their hat on, yes, but the ultimate goal still was not achieved. So it's not a shock today to see the Oilers move on from Ken Holland. It's not disappointing in any effect. It's not it's not at all really a disheartening thing, I guess is what the best way to put it is. It might be a welcome thing for most people. I know Ken Holland's done the job to the best he can. There was some bad contracts before he got here. There was obviously the Oscar Klefbom injury, which necessitated the need until Klefbom retired to use his contract in the LTIR pool. So for the Oilers to be competitive, they always had to spend to the cap pretty much until the last season under Ken Holland, right? We were in that LTIR usage. It was perfected 2 years ago when we got against Vegas in round two, bringing in Ekholm, obviously doing all that, bringing in, who was the other guy? Nick Bukestad, Ken Holland brought in. But the problem is, at the cost they were at, you lose some first rounders, you lose a lot of second rounders, and now this year we've got a second, two fifths, two sixths, two sevenths. So unless the Oilers, Jeff Jackson or new GM maybe gets hired today, if there's something already in the works. I know Patrick's been talking a lot about Mark Hunter of the London Knights, but unless something's already in the works, Jeff Jackson is going to have a really interesting draft to go through here. Obviously, I don't know how apt Jeff Jackson would be trading up, trading down, trading for a player with those picks, whatever the case might be. But for the Oilers, unless you're offloading a Jack Campbell or an Evander Kane with that second round pick, I highly doubt the Oilers are going to part with it, simply because we need to start getting bodies in the system. And they really didn't do much of that. I know there was a lot of talk back in February, March about college free agents and all that. And again, to Ken Holland's credit, patient and decided to wait it out instead. But here he is now, removed from the job, and we still didn't do anything. So for the Oilers, you really got to start stocking the cupboards with some picks here. And I wonder truly some of the guys that are within the Oilers pipeline here that you might not know about as well, like a Lindewall. There's, I believe we still have the rights to Berezkin. Like, there's a whole bunch of random names to common day Oilers fans that haven't watched every draft for the past 5 years under Ken Holland that might not know that we have some guys available to us, but the caliber and the quality of them still not fully known. So that's kind of where, as an Oilers fan today, is going into the draft tomorrow. You want to see the Oilers use every single draft pick to draft a player. I don't care about trading up, I don't care about trading down, but obviously Ken Holland hasn't left us the ability to kind of play with our picks the way maybe this Oilers organization truly needs to get better and to find that next year to win the Stanley Cup next year. That said, that's not the only route. There is free agency, there is buyouts, there is trades, there's all that still available. But the draft capital that the Oilers have, combined with the prospect pool in the past 2 years, just isn't enough alone to allow the Oilers to kind of get that two pieces better to guarantee a Stanley Cup next year. So friends, that's really the news today. Ken Holland is out as Edmonton Oilers general manager, out in any official capacity with the Oilers. He has been informed he will not return. And for that, friends, that is the news of the morning here on a rainy day in Cold Lake as we get set up for, like I said, the July long weekend. Get the rain out here, get the rain out on Friday, and let's do this 3 straight days, 25 plus. That would be absolutely the dream, as it usually is on July long weekend here in Cold Lake. But as we get to that, we'll obviously have some draft coverage. We'll obviously have some stuff throughout the time, and we'll see what the Edmonton Oilers bring for us here in this next weekend coming up. Obviously, July 1st is going to be an interesting one. But to those of you in the chat right now, say, Dean, Pringle, welcome aboard. Thanks for being in there. But yeah, that'll pretty much do it for me this evening. Again, if you're just this morning, if you're just tuning in, thanks for being aboard, and we will catch you a little later on today. I'm sure there will be some more news. Thanks for being along. If you're just tuning out, hit that like button, and let's have a good little recap here for everybody else tuning in after.